how do we get to the truth of what's happening in the market? So the best example of recent times is the 2024 presidential election in the US. All of the major media outlets are reporting from polling data. So Pew Polls and various other gold standard polling data. But they were massively wrong. The market data coming from prediction markets was unbelievably accurate, even on a state-by-state basis. And you look at how US football changed when Messi came in, and just the world's greatest player ever. And we've built something that we feel is best in class in terms of the adoption model and the speed at which we can generate users.
Welcome to Crypto OGs.
Welcome to Crypto OGs. We have today Mr. Stuart Stott. Thank you so much for coming to the show.
Great to be here. Pleasure.
So let's dig in. Before we're talking about prediction market, let's talk about Stuart. Who is Stuart? What you were doing before crypto, and what you're building right now?
Absolutely. So I started my career in 2008. Just happened to be the youngest person at the Daily Mail at the time.
Okay.
And the Daily Mail was going through a big transition.
Okay.
It needed to go online, and I was part of those launch teams in the early days. And I remember we went to a kind of massive conference and we were told, this is a disaster. The Mail Online's not going to work. You're behind the Guardian, behind the Times, and you're not doing subscription model. It's just going to be a disaster for you. Fast forward a year, we were the biggest English-speaking website in the world.
Oh, wow. How many users?
Over 1 billion users. So it went from being nothing, this is not going to work, to being one of the biggest websites in the world. And during that time, I learned so much about user adoption, digital transformation, taking analog businesses into digital businesses, and generating loyalty amongst users. And that was really what set me on the path to my media career. From there, I went to Global Media. So Global Media is one of the biggest radio groups in the world. They own Capital FM, Classic FM, Heart, Smooth. And I went there at a time where they had the same issues. They had an analog business, analog advertisers, and the big project we worked on there was the digital audio exchange, which was taking all of that inventory, building a technology platform that can transition that into a media purchase position where you could buy all of that inventory digitally all at once. So very similar to the Daily Mail was, how do we bring these users into a digital format? You had the advent of DAB moving from FM to digital formats. And we started to see the same thing. Everybody was using the social channels. Everybody was moving onto the websites, onto our app platform. So the kind of beginning parts of my career were really, how do you take traditional media businesses and turn them into digital powerhouses?
Wow. So with 1 billion users.
More than now, yeah.
That's fascinating. And I'm very bullish into media. You know, we have Crypto OGs as a media platform. I will ask you a couple of questions later, but let's talk about Galactic, because you're putting all that knowledge and experience in, and you're the CEO and founder of Galactic. Tell us, what is Galactic? Great name, by the way.
Thank you.
Everybody's choosing good names these days.
You've got to. Well, for me, I looked at the Web3 world 2016, 2017, and I was so interested because it was all based on communities. But there was still real issues around adoption. And I started attending all the events. So I started going to all the big conferences. And there was an echo chamber of technology and something that I'd seen before, which was the technology is outstanding. Here's what it can do. Here's why it's important. For me, my focus was more on adoption. How do we build the right partnerships? How do we build the right platforms where it's easier for users to get involved? Most of your guests will say it's difficult when you're not from the crypto space, or if you're not a native, to understand even how to buy crypto can be confusing for people. So one of the things I set out when I started Galactic was, how do we make it easy for people to onboard into the Web3 space? It should feel as if you're entering a Web2 space. It should be as easy as going to a website.
It's basically what you did with Daily Mail back in 2008.
Exactly. Let's make this as easy for users to adopt. And in 2008, a website was confusing for people. Like this is how far we've come in like 16 years. Is back then, like when you said mobile traffic's going to be massive, people are like, who's going to read the news on their phone? Like it changes so quickly. And I think this is the journey that Web3 is on at the moment, is how do we bring mass audiences into the space, but make them feel very comfortable? And a part of this is doing the right regulatory things, compliance, because if you look at the US market, very fortunately over the last year, it's changed dramatically in the favor of the Web3 world. But that means that industries have to lead the way in terms of compliance and responsibility. If you want to bring on mass audiences and you want them to trust the platform, you have a responsibility as a corporate owner to make sure that you do everything that you possibly can do to protect your customers. And at Galactic, when we founded the company, that was the kind of core basis. Is we want a global market. We operate primarily in the US, but the way to do that is through the highest levels of compliance and diligence.
Wow. Before jumping to how Galactic works, you're obviously a visionary of media, right? And I've been in crypto 8 years, and I've been doing media for crypto for the last 2.5 years. And media for crypto is a totally wild west. You know, you have the marketing agencies, you have the KOLs, you have people doing podcasts like me. You have also very good magazines, you know, massive with 50, 100 million of users. There's a lot going on right there. When I started crypto in 2016, there was no YouTubers of crypto. And by the way, the people that work in crypto, or the KOLs, are the most rewarded content creators in the world financially. It's crazy. So,
firstly, I love the media setup within the crypto space.
It's all like, it's crazy.
And you've got such active users.
Yeah.
You've got such engaged users, and the opinions really come out there. And I think that's what makes it a very unique space, is that you have such active people who are very engaged with the YouTubers, with the various media platforms, and you don't see that in many industries.
You don't see it.
And the volume of content that comes out, sometimes it's really hard to understand and decipher what's real, what's not, which is now the same problem with all media. And that's what we found really important about prediction markets, and why we built a prediction market technology platform. So the way our platform works is essentially we're a white label platform that you can plug into any major media outlet to give them prediction markets. And those prediction markets are built specifically for their users. So to give you a bit of background about prediction markets and why we feel they're so important, is really about how do we get to the truth of what's happening in the market. So the best example of recent times is the 2024 presidential election in the US. All of the major media outlets are reporting from polling data. So Pew Polls and various other gold standard polling data. But they were massively wrong. And they've been massively wrong now for 4 elections.
But they were manipulated?
Not manipulated. It's the data itself is invalid because of the way it's generated. The sort of person that wants to take a poll and wants to tell you their opinion is already swayed in a different direction than you want them to be. So it's very difficult to get that pure data. They're also not using their own money, and it's a very narrow opinion. It's not a diverse population. And the way that the wisdom of crowds works is that by taking that diversity of opinion and backing it with somebody putting their own money where their mouth is, you get very accurate data. So while we watched the polling data get more and more skewed away from the real result, the market data coming from prediction markets was unbelievably accurate. Even on a state-by-state basis, the predictions were much closer than the polling data was. We were just fortunate. We started this journey 18 months ago when no one knew what a prediction market was. I remember speaking to early investors, and they looked at me like I had 3 heads and were like, okay, we don't quite understand this. But sometimes you've got to be lucky with timing, and we were super lucky with the timing. Prediction markets came to the fore with the presidential election. The administration that got in was very regulatory friendly and moving in the right direction for we think crypto should be to be regulated properly and have a real onshore US base. And it all worked fantastically well just due to timing. 2025 is where the excitement comes for us. So from my background, I understood that the way to go and develop audiences and users quickly was to partner with the biggest media companies. And the way we did that is we started working with some of the relationships we've had for a long time. We were fortunate enough to be their prediction market partners and their Web3 partners. And the team there are just incredible. They have really just this integrity within sports journalism, and what we want to do is develop that integrity into the prediction market model and to the Web3 model, and really bring not only their audiences but sports fans around the world a platform they can trust, that they know is going to be regulated in the right way, and that the companies behind this are ones that have been in the business for a long time.
So you have one of the biggest media outlets in the US as a partner, which is amazing, but also you mentioned another one. There's a quite a quite good thing that my kids like a lot.
So we've started working with various partners, Polkadot being one of our partners,
Yeah.
and we've been working with the team at Polkadot on one of the partnerships that they forged last year.
Okay.
They became the sponsors of Inter Miami,
Wow.
which was an incredible partnership.
It's amazing.
Great visibility for the Web3 world to have these real world amazing teams with such visibility.
So Inter of Miami is the team that David Beckham bought and the Messi played, right?
Yeah, David Beckham and is one of the founders there. An incredible story. And you look at how US football changed when Messi came in, and just the world's greatest player ever. So it's quite handy to have him there. But what we saw was the media landscape for the MLS changed almost immediately.
Yes.
And you can see the growth numbers in soccer in the US has been incredible. So from our side, working with the team at Polkadot to develop not only prediction markets but fan experience.
Fan experience, okay.
To make sure that fans can find a way of working within Web3 that's easy, trusted, and simple to use. A lot of this is based on, if you get the UI and UX correct, as well as the technology, people can onboard much easier. So from our side, it's always trying to simplify the process while staying true to the Web3 fundamentals of transparency.
So you mentioned something about the experience of fans, right? And we have seen within crypto in the last 2-3 years, all the biggest exchange in the world, they partnered up with Premier League teams, with F1 teams. You see now all the crypto industry is dominating. I was before in the 90s and in the 2000s, it was the software companies.
Yeah.
And before cigarettes. But now we have the crypto world supporting sports, supporting the biggest football players as well. But I know there's no conversion as they want. In your experience, how they can fix that? They're investing a lot of $1 million in teams, in F1s, and Premier Leagues, in La Liga, but there's no conversion.
It's a real challenge. And I think this goes back down to how you build your sponsorships and partnership model.
Okay.
For us, we look at it on a user basis where we've got an incredible product that works for those users. I think a lot of the time people have thought, we need eyeballs. How do we get awareness around our brand? The problem is, if you take some of the examples who have sponsored football shirts, you sponsor the soccer team, but people see the name, they still can't onboard with the company. They still can't easily access what you want them to do. So if you don't have a related project that's something that ties into that soccer club, that gives the fans real value and it's really easy to onboard
and to use,
and it brings them back real value, then you're going to have this issue of people going, what is that? And never really acting. And I think up until now, people have thought, well, there's 1 billion eyeballs, we'll convert some. And it's like, well, if you don't show them how to convert and you don't give them like a real world value back, you just lose the interest of the customer. So a lot of these companies have bought the world's most expensive stickers that really haven't delivered them what they should. But I don't think that's really anybody's fault. I think it's at the beginning and infancy of these sort of partnerships. It's really important to understand what both parties need to get out of them to present real value. And I think that was just part of the early days. There was so much money in the space that these were the new big advertisers. These were the kind of new software companies. They were the new gambling companies. They were the new guys on the block with the money. I think now what you'll see is these companies being much more specific about their needs in terms of these partnerships. I think they'll get much smarter in terms of the KPIs and things that they want to deliver. But I think the companies themselves, the Web3 companies and chains, they're going to understand that they need to change the way they operate to be much more user-friendly. Because if we don't, then the users just don't come. And everybody seems to be fighting over the same kind of portion of native users. And we really need to develop new audiences.
Let me tell you a story. It's quite fascinating about, we got invited by a company to a football match. I won't mention which one. But then my son asked me, Daddy, why that company like is in the t-shirts, it's everywhere, and what has to do with trading, with how football and crypto trading are relatable? I say, do I need to trade to play football, or how it works? And I didn't give him the answer. Of course, he was 8 years old boy. But then he told me something quite fascinating. It just came to me. He said, what about instead of me doing trading, because it's quite difficult, I don't understand the charts, I don't understand. What about I can support my team, if they win, I make money. I said, wow, can I not do that for me? So he said that back then.
And I couldn't agree more. And this is where like the prediction model, even if it's fantasy predictions, is giving you the chance to figure out the outcomes. And these don't just need to be the outcomes in terms of scores. These can be outcomes in terms of what players are going to be in the pitch, who's going to be injured, what's the attendance at the stadium.
That's fascinating, yeah.
So all the things, because about 1% of news media is about the actual results. 99% of sports news media is about the rumor mill. What's going to happen, who's going to get injured, what are people doing off the pitch, what's going to affect their play. And that's where a lot of the audience is. And I think you're entirely correct. How do we create products that tie into big corporations and big audiences that really work for the user? Again, everything's backed into the user. People try and force users to do things they don't want to do, and it always ends in disaster. If you make it seamless and easy to onboard, and there's real value at the end, then users speak to each other. These communities develop, and people build this trust. And I think, having heard other people on the show previously, a lot of people have talked about the clear out when there's a poor market within crypto. And I think that's happened this time. And I think what you're going to see is a lot of corporations really consider their approach. It will be much more thought out. It will not be an afterthought, because they're not time pressured into there's a bull run right now. We need to get involved in this because it's all over the news and we need to be there. This is more, we've had 2 years to think about how we're going to approach this. And when the timing is right, we're going to deliver the right product. I think that is the difference this time around, where previously there's been failures.
Okay, and now we're merging, obviously, the prediction market with crypto. And there is some actors out there that are already doing this. Why Galactic is so different?
The reason that we've set up our business and the way that it works is partnering with the biggest companies in the world.
Okay.
So the user acquisition model can be challenging, where you have to go out and essentially buy customers and bring them in this way. What we've done is we've created prediction markets for specific verticals. Again, in that big media space with hundreds of millions of users, where essentially we create markets that are right for their users and they can onboard quickly. The prediction markets out there are good. Don't get me wrong, they're good. There's still some teething issues and a regulatory framework with some of them, and some of them are quite hard to use still. So we've taken a lot of knowledge from in the industry, as well as our own knowledge within media and adoption, and we've built something that we feel is best in class in terms of the adoption model and the speed at which we can generate users. And that's through these partnerships. These major partnerships are how you acquire users at a much higher rate, but our responsibility is to give them the best experience. So for us, we've got to make sure that we have the highest standards when it comes to that brand integrity.
Stuart, and what is coming for Galactic very soon? Can you give any hint? What future announcements, something that people will get excited, or not yet?
We'll have a lot of announcements around the Super Bowl. The MLS season starts in February, so there'll be some exciting announcements around that. And then come the rest of 2025, we're going to be announcing our major partnerships. So keep an eye on the space. Every 8 weeks, there'll be something new and exciting coming from Galactic. We've built an incredible team of people around us, which allow us to not only forge these partnerships, but execute perfectly. So it's been a long time coming, but we're really excited about this year. I think it's going to be a big year.
It's a good year. And how people can get involved with Galactic from the B2B side, partners, or from the retail side?
Yeah, absolutely. So from a business side, we're always looking for new partners in the right verticals. So if you've got a media empire that you want to partner with on a prediction model basis, like that's the sort of things we're really interested in. So always looking to speak to new people in that space. And then on the business side, like for us, we're going to be launching and making these large announcements. So you're going to be able to see publicly, going to be able to get on those platforms really easily. And it will be with the kind of mainstream brands that you've heard of before, and some new exciting ones that are in fast growth. So there'll be plenty of ways to access.
So it has been fascinating having you in the show. Very, very bullish about prediction markets in 2025. I name it here. It's the new trend for 2025 in Web3.
Let's hope so.
We're making it happen. Thank you so much for coming to the show.
My pleasure.
And I'll see you in the next episode of Crypto G's, and I'll see you in the event tonight.
Thank you very much.
Next to the Burj Khalifa.